It is my great pleasure. I'm pretty sure we'll
We'll
find
see.
out anyway. Well, you know, I'm always holding out hope, Brian, that once again you will kill it. And this morning, I think I've got some fun stuff to talk about. I don't know if you had a chance. Brian White, by the way, is my guest today. He's my guest every Monday and Tuesday, sort of. And then I'm his guest every Tuesday and Saturday or Friday.
It's often Tuesday, Wednesday. It kind of depends.
It just kind of depends. So we're on each other's show, and if you're not following him, you should follow him. And if you're not following me,
How
how
are
do
you watching this? It's amazing.
you?
Where did you find the technology?
Last week, Brian, there was a giant, well, it was a debate anyway, over on Farzad's channel, and he had a bunch of the regular characters over there, but it really came down to Gary Black and Larry Goldberg doing most of the work. I don't, did you happen to see that whole
I
thing?
did not.
All right. I thought that Gary Black had one good idea. Sorry, Gary, there may have been others that were okay, but there was one idea I did think needed more conversation. And Saxena Peru, I think his actual name is the reverse, Peru Saxena, Saxena dot Peru, Puru is how he goes on X. He says it this way. He says, I had an interesting discussion with investors on autonomous vehicles. The consensus view autonomous driving will still feels like a solution in search of a problem. Yes, anecdotal and small sample, but the shared view was that most people like to drive. In many countries, traffic is chaotic, nobody follows lanes, motorbikes dominate, app-based taxis already exist, yet car ownership persists and many families own multiple cars. Most people in the group asked, why would anybody give up their car just because the taxi now drives itself or gets to the destination cheaper? Cheaper transport already exists, buses, metros, tuk-tuks, auto rickshaws. Yet people who can afford cars buy them, and not always the cheapest ones either. Granted, AVs may be safer, more efficient, but the emotional and practical reasons for owning a car remain strong. Freedom, control, status symbol, convenience, and privacy. And what about the millions of professional drivers who could lose their jobs? Oh no. Finally, he says, look, this isn't a post against Tesla. I'm a shareholder. I was a shareholder, mainly for Optimus. Just a few thoughts about perhaps adoption may depend less on technical feasibility and more on whether AVs truly solve a real world problem or improve daily life. So, Brian, what do you think?
I think I'm not familiar with that user on X. I'm going to tell you that's what I call a liar. That's not a real person saying a real thing in a real way. Maybe it's engagement farming, but there are zero humans alive who purchased Tesla because of Optimus and have sold it. That's not a thing. So, Sexy Peru is maybe a place, but not a person. That's Donkey Kong. Come on. Okay, great. You don't understand cars or people or both. You don't understand. I mean, sure, millions will lose their jobs. Unemployment is very low. We need more people to fill the jobs we already have. But even if we didn't, autonomy is coming. That's happening. That's not something that's up for debate. So let me get this straight. No one wants a chauffeur. I understand not wanting to take the bus. Some buses are crowded, some buses are smelly. Buses can be very slow. If I wish to take the bus somewhere, it will turn what in my town would be a 5-minute journey into a minimum of an hour. In cities where transportation is a little better, where mass transit's a little more effective, you can take a 30-minute drive and turn it into an hour. But in a lot of cases, it can be a 2 or 3 hour journey for something that you could do pretty easily in a car, uh, even when it works really, really well. The commute from the suburbs of Seattle to downtown or the suburbs of Seattle to the university district is faster on the bus. Most people choose not to use the bus. They want their car. They don't want to drive their car. They want to have their car. They want to be able to go somewhere different afterwards that's not necessarily on a route. They want all their stuff with them because some of us are hunters, but some of us are gatherers. Some of us are both. People want their stuff in their car. And the status symbol, I mean, do you think less of a Mercedes because it has traffic jam assist? That doesn't make any sense at all. This argument falls apart at, frankly, every level. And I do not believe this is a legitimate person making a legitimate argument.
Okay, so but from a marketing standpoint, you're a marketer, I'm a marketer. From a marketing standpoint, we always do have to look at that consumer, that ultimate customer, and have some kind of a understanding of the psychology, the sociology, et cetera, that's involved. And we can start at the what you might call the far end of this argument and say there are people who genuinely like to drive.
Sure.
I would count myself among them until maybe a few years ago. Now that I'm much, much older, the thrill of driving is becoming less and less. Um, uh, so, but I think that's a very small percentage of the population. What do you think?
Well, let's talk about those people. There are people who love to drive. BMW is the, what is it, the ultimate driving machine. I would argue that people who buy BMWs really enjoy the experience of driving a BMW. Do you think BMW drivers don't take taxis ever? That doesn't make sense. All Teslas today still have a steering wheel. You can still drive them. They're still really fun to drive. All of them, even the rear wheel drive ones with the lowest horsepower, still have 90s Viper style horsepower. They're fun cars. Uh, and the Cybercab, it promises to have no wheel. Great. That means you won't take it around the track. It's not meant for that. Buy one of the other ones that is. So again, do people who own really fun cars not get around any other way? Do they not take an Uber from the airport in Amsterdam or wherever it is they go? I mean, that doesn't, again, this argument is absolutely ridiculous.
So the person on the extreme end, you're saying, might continue to own a car, but they have many opportunities when they're vacationing or when they want
Sure,
to go downtown and they don't want to, they're going to go out for drinks.
sure,
They don't want to have a designated driver. There's all these other opportunities where they're already getting into an Uber or a Waymo or something. They would
sure.
just be getting into a robot.
Let's let's start with how I think the market will expand. Start with Uber and Lyft and taxi. Just replace those. That's a no-brainer. Nobody says, I'm not taking an Uber. I love to drive. That's not a thing. Okay, so you got those people. And then as you cut the price a bit, you'll expand it. There are people who literally take Uber to work every day, and people who take it 3 to 4 times a week instead of five. Well, if the price goes down, they'll move to five. You got more riders. And as the price keeps coming down, which it should, uh, the market will continue to expand. And you've got people who say, I will never give up my car. I will always have a car. Although, I mean, my car is in the shop right now, so I'm gonna take, okay, I'll take CyberCab this week, but I'm not getting, how much is it to fix my car? Holy smokes. Maybe, maybe you can keep it and I'll just stick with the CyberCab. That will happen.
So
And young people don't drive the way our generation did. I
I'm in
mean,
the
my
same generation
generation
you
and
have.
your generation. Uh, your generation and my generation drove. When we turned 16, I got my license on my 16th birthday. I had the day off school, not important why. And I went and got my license. It was freedom. You don't need a license to have freedom today. All your friends aren't at the neighborhood soda shop. They're online. And that's where you'll find them. That's where you'll meet them. So people don't need cars to have access to all the movies, all the entertainment, all their friends. It's at home.
I think there's a bunch of categories, specialized categories that are going to be very big. I think an old folk, even older than me, which is hard to imagine, who is no longer feeling comfortable driving at all or driving at night, is going to be way more likely to take a driverless car once they're comfortable with the idea of the driverless car than they are an Uber. There can be some fear associated with taking an Uber, especially for women. So whether it's elderly people or whether it's women, taking a driverless car is less scary than having somebody who picks you up who might be themselves scary.
And it's not an irrational fear. I mean, 99% of the time, even more, it's fine. There are situations that work out okay, where it's still very uncomfortable, where there's bad vibes in the car, but sometimes it doesn't work out. Uh, SeaTac Airport has one of those subway systems. I mean, it's more of an underground bus, but it looks like a train. Uh, it doesn't have a driver, and it just works. No one thinks twice about it. You get in, it goes. Uh, that's one less thing to go wrong. That's one less person who might snap and have a bad day and say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. That's one less person who can fall asleep on the job. And that's the reality with these cars. A lot of the complaints I see about autonomous systems are, I wouldn't have done that thing that it did. And that's deeply unfair. You're comparing your best self to its worst self. That's like looking at your friends on Instagram and saying, gosh, they have the perfect life. They don't. They're showing you the perfect life. And the reality is, the other day, my car did something that required an intervention. There was a left turn. The light was presumably green, but we were so close behind the Amazon truck that my car could not see if the light was red or green. And I couldn't see if it was red or green. And as we got to the intersection, I saw it was red. How long was it red? No idea. I slammed on the brakes. That's a mistake I made when I was 16 or 17, and I've never made it since. So that means FSD is only as good as you were when you were a teenager. Right. Except when I was a teenager, there were 100 other mistakes I made that my car would never make. So we're comparing my worst moment at 16 to its average moment in 2025. It's not a fair comparison, and we need to look at it more honestly.
So maybe the most important thing, and I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure if I remember right, this never came up in that entire debate the other day, and that is the recapture of time. So if
Wow.
I am, if I'm, now listen, I get good use out of my time in a car. Even when I'm by myself, I will listen to a podcast or, in days gone by, I would have listened to some kind of talk radio or maybe just listen to jazz or top 40 or whatever happened to be on my list at that time. And other people would use various ways of getting their music piped in today. And that's not a complete waste of time to enjoy some music on the way to work. However, when you compare that to being able to utilize the time precisely and exactly the way that would be best for you that day, that's a whole different advantage, especially maybe for salespeople, business people, busy moms, others who could really take advantage of that time.
So I saw a comment yesterday on my channel. Someone said, if FSD worked, it would be permitted in Europe. It doesn't work. It's not permitted. Once it actually works, it'll be approved. And I said, are you mental? It does work. It's already improving safety in the countries in which it's permitted. The version we have today, supervised, is a good system. It works. And Europe does not permit it. That defeats that entire argument. I want my time back. Um, I would love to be able to text and drive. Today, that's not yet permitted. When I'm on my road trips, I could get so much work done while I'm trapped in the car. And instead, what I do is sit there and think for a few hours on the way to a charger, plug in, get as much work done as quick as I can back on the road. I'd love to have the ability to actually use that time. But even as it is today, the mental load is so much better. Micromanaging every decision for hours, 5 hours, 10 hours is draining. If you are a full meat driver and you spend all day on the road, realistically, you're going to want a whole day off to recover. Not with driver assistance at this level, not with something like FSD version 12 or 13. You're going to arrive at your destination, perhaps tired, perhaps hungry, but you're not going to arrive fried. That's just not how it works.
Yesterday, I guess it was actually Saturday, I got my mail, and in that mail was another increase in my car insurance policy.
Mm.
I know you mentioned earlier that young people are not as interested in driving as my generation or your generation, which are very close, by the way. I mean, we're just, it's hardly 20 years apart. Anyway, so but in reality, a big reason why young people, and when I say young people, into their 20s, are not buying a car and using other people's cars, are using Waymo, using Lyft, using Uber, etc. The reason they're doing it is because the cost of
Mm.
owning and operating a car today is just kind of out of control. My car insurance for one car, just for what my Tesla now, is up to 230. A year ago it was 125.
Oof.
I'm going to start looking for another carrier if possible. But anyway, this is a, a situation which is going to be pushing more and more people, I think, into the self-driving when it becomes available.
Okay. No. Yes, the costs are outrageous, but um, insurance is an easy one because you can kind of predict it. Certainly 6 months out, you have a pretty good idea a year out. It's the repairs. And repairs have gotten astronomically expensive, regardless of what it is. You and I have seen cars, pictures of cars on social media where someone says, "Hey, how much do you think this damages?" And I'm sure you've done what I've done, which is look at it and think of it like a car in the 80s or 90s where you're like, it's not that bad. Maybe, I don't know, 5, 10. No, it's totaled. The car's totaled because that's just how cars are. That's not unique to Tesla or EVs. That's all cars. Part of it is labor's gotten more expensive because there are fewer people doing that kind of work, makes less competition, makes higher rates, but also because the parts themselves are difficult. And you can complain and say, well, gosh, I just wish it was like in the old days where you could swap out a fender. My friend, if you crash that old car, you're doing more than swapping out a fender. You might just be dead. Look up the Malibu crash. They took a 90s Malibu and put it in a head-on small overlap collision with a old Malibu, like a 60s Malibu. And it is breathtaking how unsafe those old cars were because they weren't designed for safety. They were designed for aesthetics. It's probably safe because it's big and heavy. No. So the safety costs more, the sensors cost more, um, and it makes cars less repairable. But even if it's just something mechanical, if your transmission is on the fritz in your gas powered car, get rid of it. If you've got any time left, get rid of it, dump it.
Another one that I'm hearing a ton about, and I think this will create a massive amount of use, is that moms and dads of kids, let's say above 7, 8, 9 years old, are literally putting their kids into a Waymo and sending them off to ball practice. And they won't, I don't think they'll do that very as easily with an Uber. Same thing that we talked about
Oh,
earlier, a sense of, no, I'm not going to put my child in a car with a stranger, but I put my child in a car with no driver, where I know that they're going to a place that I can trust. And certainly as they get older, get into the 11, 12, 13, 14 area, the amount of time that might be saved in terms of transporting kids to practices, to music lessons, to even to their friends' homes, could be crazy.
And after school programs.
Right.
It is not fair to say that that Uber is dangerous, but it's also reasonable to point out that no robots have engaged in human trafficking. So let's start there. Zero is better than a number that isn't zero when it comes to trafficking your children or strangers' children. I mean, I guess, you know, uh, we're trying to keep this realistic. It's not a big concern, but it is a real concern.
So the federal government says that it costs about 65 cents to run any US vehicle on average. Sure, you can buy an aging 150,000 mile Honda for, $2,000 maybe, and keep it on the road. Pay some amount for gasoline. Probably be under that 65 cents, but let's just use 65 cents because I think that's what the government currently says.
Sounds about right.
And that doesn't include housing it. So if you've got a garage and you start to take into consideration the value of that garage space, it would be way over 65 cents. So there's a number for somebody who's just thinking about the numbers, and maybe that number is $1, maybe that number is 90 cents, where not having to not having to be bothered with a vehicle, whether it's parking it, whether it's repairing it, whether it's gassing it up, whether it's washing it, all the things that you have to do, whether it's parking it someplace and worrying about it getting scratched, by another vehicle, all those things go away when you're just hailing a cybercab.
Well, whether it's your cybercab or someone else's, whether it's just your car that can drive itself, imagine what changes when you no longer have to say, what about parking? I've gone to events before in Seattle, in Portland, where the first question I have to ask is there parking? Am I going to be spending $20 to come to your event? Am I going to be stressed out trying to find parking? If that part of the equation's gone, whether it's in a cybercab or my own car, because again, people want their own, great, buy your own car. No one cares. It's no longer an issue.
Because you just tell it to go park itself.
Yeah. Go park. And I've known people who live downtown. I worked downtown. I had some coworkers who lived downtown. This is in the 90s. They were already paying $300 a month for parking. That's $10 a day. One guy said, "Oh, I don't pay for parking. It's included in my rent. I got a free spot." And my other coworker said, "You're still paying for that, right? Because I'm in a condo. I have a parking spot, but I also rent one of my neighbor's parking spots. So I have two parking spots. I'm paying an extra $400 or $500 a month to my neighbor who now has a revenue stream because he doesn't have a car."
I'm also anticipating that at some point, whether it is the fleet that Tesla puts on the road, or whether it's the Airbnb type fleets, that we will probably get to something which will look like a subscription rate. So you'll just pay $300 a month, and it'll always be available. You'll know what your cost is going to be, and all of a sudden you're looking at, well, it's $300 a month to have a RoboTaxi at my disposal, or it's $350 a month for the lease of a car I own.
So I disagree.
Oh.
Do you remember the unlimited mileage? Just pay once and you get a golden ticket. You can fly anywhere. This was offered in, I want to say, the early 90s. Mark Cuban bought one, and it was something like $1 million one time, fly all you want. And they actually kept reducing the price until they actually crunched the numbers and found that this is a terrible investment, because people who would fly this many miles, we thought they'd fly this many, and they don't. They fly this many. They fly infinite miles. They'll go to Paris for lunch. So it's possible that a subscription could come about, but I think people would abuse it. And it doesn't matter, because we're too far from that for it to matter today. We'll, I'm sure, explore opportunities as they arise, but I don't know if the free pass is something that's going to come.
Well, okay, let me just finish with, we are theoretically looking at Thursday for the launch of RoboTaxi, but Tesla still hasn't said squat to confirm or deny whether Thursday's the day.
Who said Thursday, by the way?
Thursday the 12th, right?
Right. Who said Thursday?
Well, that was Reuters.
Oh, yeah. I mean, sure, sure, sure.
So,
But
so
it does. You know what? Now I hope it doesn't happen on
yeah,
Thursday because people need to recognize Reuters for their quality, and I'm confident their quality is not good.
not good, not good. So, but you've not heard anything. You've got
No,
no news or helpful information about that.
correct. The ears I have to the ground would not necessarily help in this situation. So that the fact that I've heard nothing doesn't mean nothing's happening. It means I probably wouldn't hear either way.
Okay, all right. So, but we would anticipate that unless we do get an announcement that the June launch, which is the thing that was announced by Tesla as late as I think in sometime in May, was the last time they said it was still on schedule for June. We can pretty much count on that.
I think it may have already happened.
Okay, so I've heard people saying
I
that.
love that I'm bringing this up now, this late in the show. Randy's trying to wind it down and Brian's throwing out new ones. Come on. Go ahead.
I would just think that there would be sightings. That's all.
Well, they're just Model Ys.
But they would be Model Ys with nobody in the driver's seat.
Yeah, but they're tinted windows. You wouldn't notice.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Model Ys are so common. Have you seen the headrest covers that look like ski masks?
There you go.
I mean, just throw those on and you've got a very
And a
well
little
disguised
tinted
vehicle.
window, and you're already
Yeah.
in business. Yeah. I don't know. This one seems like another one of those ones where there would be a leak. Somebody would have said, I took.
It's all internal.
So what?
It's all internal. I mean, if it's a hand selected pool, you surely have an NDA.
Yeah. Okay.
But humans are bad at secrets. I'll agree.
That is true. All right. So we'll see, though. Maybe this week we will get the beginning of this project. And that will be the beginning of, as I've been saying for weeks on the air, whether it's before or just after, at some point, people are going to go, whoops, that's going to be a big deal. And the stock will begin to respond, I believe, which is why I have continued to have my 488 price target for 2 weeks after RoboTaxi starts.
Well, I look forward to that being incorrect one way or the other. It doesn't matter which way. Like Reuters, I just need Randy to be wrong.
Well, there's a parting shot for you. I will part on that shot, or shot that anyway. Brian, I almost thank you for joining me today.
Mhm.
And we will see you. I'm sure we'll see you again on Tuesday and Wednesday on your show. And follow him on Future Aza. It's been great talking to you.